Good afternoon. I'm Lexi Newell from Temple Beth Or here in Raleigh. We gather today to remember the life of your beloved Mark Feldman. And all those who loved him so well. We begin with a reading from the Psalms. You can find these familiar words in the program that you got in the back of the room. Psalm 23, a psalm of David. Adonai, you are my shepherd, I shall not want. You make me lie down in green pastures. You lead me beside still waters. You restore my soul. You guide me in paths of righteousness for your name's sake. Yes, even when I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I shall fear no evil, for you are with me. With rod and staff you comfort me. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You anointed my head with oil. My cup overflows. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of my God forever. Now I'll call Mark's granddaughter, Lexi, who will read the poem from the poet Hannah Senish. It's right here.
Wait, can I read that? These words come from the poet Hannah Senish. There are stars up above, so far away we only see the light long, long after the star itself is gone. And it is so with people that we loved. Their memories keep shining ever brightly, though their time is done. But the stars that light up the darkness tonight, these are lights that guide us. As we live our days, these are the way we remember.
We continue with Psalm 121. Esainai el harim me'ain yavo ezri. Esainai el harim me'ain yavo ezri. Ezri me'im Adonai, o se shamayim va'aretz. Ezri me'im Adonai, o se shamayim va'aretz. Although Mark is no longer with us in body, his memory lives in each of you who knew and loved him. In your programs, you'll find the words of remembrance written by Jack Reimer and Sylvan Kamens. In the rising of the sun and in its going down, we remember them. In the blowing of the wind and in the chill of the winter, we remember them. In the opening of the buds and in the rebirth of spring, we remember them. In the blueness of the sky and in the warmth of the summer, we remember them. In the beginning of the year and when it ends, we remember them. When we are weary and in need of strength, we remember them. When we are lost and sick at heart, we remember them. When we have joys we yearn to share, we remember them. So long as we live, he shall live too, for he is a part of us as we remember him. For all of you, however you knew him, husband, father, grandfather, brother, or friend, Mark's family shares that to know him was truly to know the definition of a life well lived. He lived a life full of humor, was the brightest light in the room and the life of the party. In his final days, despite his illness, Mark faced each day with courage and determination, and he did it his way. Mark was married to the love of his life, Jeannie, for 45 years. He was the proud father of Lindsay and Kimberly, father-in-law to Scott and David, and doting grandfather to Lexi and Ryder. His family was quick to share that no remembrance of Mark would be complete without mentioning his unending love for his dog, Sunny. Mark and Jeannie had a full life in Florida. Mark made dear friends and had relationships that stood the test of time. He loved to dance and sing, offering kindness and an open heart to everyone he met. His family shared that his jokes were never in short supply. Mark faced the end of his life bravely. Jeannie recalled that even after his diagnosis, his top priority was to be certain that he would walk Kim down the aisle, and he got his wish, again, doing it his way. Mark passed confident in the love of his family and friends. He will be forever remembered by all those who knew him, and he will be deeply missed. And now the end is near, and so I face the final curtain. My friend, I'll say it clear, I'll state my case, of which I'm certain. I've lived a life that's full. I've traveled each and every highway and more, much more than this. I did it my way. Regrets, I've had a few, but then again, too few to mention. I did what I had to do. I saw it through without exemption. I planned each charted course, each careful step along the byway, and more, much more than this. I did it my way. I've loved, I've laughed and cried. I've had my fill, my share of losing. And now as tears subside, I find it all so amusing to think I did it all. And may I say, not in a shy way, oh no, no, not me. I did it my way. For what is a man? What has he got? If not himself, then he has not to say the things he truly feels, and not the words of one who kneels. I faced it all, I stood up tall, and I did it my way. I faced it all, I stood up tall, I did it my way. I'll now call Mark's family to offer their remembrances. First, I'll call Scott and Ryder Kalmas.
Thanks for everyone for coming. Mark, the man with the firmest handshake and the biggest heart. I'll never forget the first time I met Mark. I extended my hand for a friendly shake, and I swear, I thought I might need to check if all my fingers were still intact afterwards. Mark had the firmest grip that I have ever known, but beneath that tough exterior lay a heart of gold and a heart that cared deeply for his family, his friends, and his tools. His tools. Mark had a passion for his tools. He knew each one like an old friend and knew exactly where they were all stored. He proudly showed me his collection, saying, "See, I got everything." And then he'd chuckle, and you know what? It's true. When I needed something, he had it. When Mark and Jeannie moved down to Florida, he decided it was time to part ways with some of his tools. I had the privilege of inheriting a few, including his extension ladder. That ladder he had to practically pry from my hands. But that ladder symbolizes more than just a tool now. It's a reminder of Mark's willingness to lend a hand and his constant support and his enduring love. Mark was always the life of the party. He claimed he wouldn't socialize at events or make new friends after moving, but that couldn't be more far from the truth. Mark was the biggest social butterfly that I knew. Who could forget the days of the remote schooling during COVID? It was Mark who stepped in to help Lexi and Ryder. Sure, they may not have made it to every online class on time, as Mark was a bit computer illiterate, but he was always there, making sure they didn't miss out on an ounce of love. Even though he was faced with a rapid health challenge, his optimism and his positivity was so strong. He had a courage and determination. When they received the call saying they have a donor, we all rushed to the hospital. I was the last person to see him and talk with him as he was waiting to be taken into the OR. Even at that point, he was still cracking jokes, and we were both so confident about the procedure. He said, "I got this." And we shared a fist pump. Mark, you're a great man in every sense of the word. Your laughter, your strength, and your love continue to resonate with all of us. As we say goodbye today, let us not mourn the loss, but celebrate the incredible journey of a man who left a permanent mark on our lives. You want to say something?
I remember when Papa used to bring us to the park almost every day, and we'd play, and he used to take pictures with us. And then I remember when I used to mess up his hair with Lexi, and I remember also when I was at his house and he and wanted to play the drums, so he got out. He told me to come here, and so I went to him, and he got out pans and pots and spoons, and he told me to play the drums. So I played the drums there. And I really love him and miss him.
Now I'll call Mary Ann Feldman.
When I first met Mark, it was over 20 years ago. I think it was at Jeannie and Mark's 25th anniversary party. While I was just dating his brother at the time, he knew if Scott brought me around, I must mean something. From that day forward, he treated me as family, meaning he would raise his bellowing voice if he didn't like something or he was getting aggravated with me. Don't get me wrong, Mark was a wonderful man who I knew as a special son to his mom, a brother, a husband, a father, a dog dad, an uncle, a cousin, friend, and eventually as a grandfather. But he was not always the most patient man. One of my sister's fondest memories was of Mark being impatient with me, her, and Jeannie when he thought we were going to be late for a dinner reservation. That was in North Carolina when we were down for Passover/Easter weekend. He kept yelling at us that we were going to be late, and we all just kept laughing at him. By the way, we weren't late. So Mark would often raise his voice and get impatient, but he was just as quick to get over it. Other fond memories were of Easter dinners, Passover dinners, break the fast, even though I didn't fast, Christmas and Hanukkah parties, and he loved his brother Scott's famous latkes. Any time we were together, it was like a party and a reason to celebrate. I never realized how much of a brother Mark had become to me until his brother, my husband, died, and he was there, it seemed almost instantly, assuring me that we were family and that was never going to change. And it didn't, and it never will. He was there to help go through family photos, change smoke detectors, just be present. He argued with me that there was not a 10-year battery in smoke detectors. There was. I was right that time. I never told him, though. We shared inside jokes and family memories. I never knew how close Mark had become to my own biological brother until my wedding to Scott, when he and my brother Henry were the only ones there who swore we didn't serve food. We did serve food at the wedding. The chilled Patron that the two of them drank out of martini glasses may have had something to do with the fact they didn't believe we had food. Neither would admit that. They swore we never served food. There were numerous times that I recall, at the beach, other places, Mark's shoulder popped out. The whole family might be present, and Jeannie would have to drag him to the emergency room and spend the day getting it fixed, and there were many times we razzed him about it. Mark always said he loved my brother's balls. Meatballs, that was. But he wouldn't use the word meat. He used to tell him he had great balls. He also introduced my family to his great Leos, the lox, eggs, and onions he would make. And to this day, they speak of him cooking a Leo as legendary. In all seriousness, Mark's proudest moments were walking his daughters down the aisle to marry wonderful men. He was thrilled at the thought of doing the same for his niece, my bonus daughter, Stephanie. His other pride and joy was his grandchildren. No one could have loved Lexi and Ryder more. His one true love, Jeannie, and he shared a life and love that most of us envied, even when they, as most spouses, drove each other a bit crazy. Jeannie and I actually hit the husband lottery with those two brothers. I will miss the most texts and calls from Mark, where he always called me sis. Hey sis, what's going on? The world, my world, all of our worlds won't be as bright a place without him. Until we meet again, bro. Give great hugs and kisses to our loves, who I know are on the other side to meet you. Much love.
And now we'll hear Mark's niece, Stephanie Feldman.
Hello, everyone. For those who don't know me, my name is Stephanie, and I'm Uncle Mark's niece. Unfortunately, my childhood memories with my uncle are fuzzier than I would like them to be. However, in the last 4 to 5 years, I was able to reconnect with him and my other family members after being isolated for a longer time than I would like. I had a lot of anxiety about reaching out due to fear of being rejected, but Uncle Mark welcomed me back with open arms, and it was like hitting play again after a long pause. Nothing had changed at all from the memories I did have. He made me feel comforted and safe after a long time of not feeling that way. And since reconnecting, we've had days by the pool and random phone calls of catching up, and I hold on to those memories fondly. He was also really kind to my fiance, Alex. It speaks so much to his character and warmth. Uncle Mark is one of the most loving and warm men I knew, and just like his hugs, he was strong. Although he is no longer here physically, his memory will live on forever in those who love him.
Now Mark's son-in-law will speak, David Marabella.
What an awful day, right? As many of you probably know, Mark wants us to celebrate his life, not mourn his death. My name's Dave. I'm married to Kim, and I want to talk about the first time I met Mark. Kim and I had been dating just for a few weeks, and she had tried to push a few times, hey, come meet my family for a barbecue. I was hesitant. I'm an old-fashioned guy. I thought that was a big step. In the same sense, I would often pick her up, and during the time she was living with her parents. One of those times, I walked up to the door, I knocked on the door, and sure enough, per Kim, she's always late, right? I hear through the other side of the door, Mark, he's here. And sure enough, I look up and I see the most beautiful couple walking towards me. As Kim's making her way downstairs, I get to chat with Jeannie and Mark. I'm mostly chatting with Jeannie, but I look up and I see Mark's smile, right? His famous smile. And I think to myself, oh boy, this guy's gonna bust my chops. Throughout the 5 minutes that I'm there, I think Jeannie gets about 97% of my life story. But I couldn't forget Mark's smile and that thought process in my head. Fast forward to a few years later. I see the same smile with him walking Kim down the aisle. And I realized that smile was so much more than just busting my chops. It was a smile of a dog dad who puts Sonny over most humans. A man who wouldn't bat an eye to send back a Long Island iced tea if it wasn't made just perfect. A man who loved his friends like family. An amazing father who loved his daughters more than anything. A husband who loved so pure. And again, a man who would want every person in this room to celebrate his life and not mourn his death. And of course, a man who busted my chops anytime he could. I love you, Mark.
Now I'll call Mark's daughter, Lindsay, and granddaughter, Lexi Kalmus.
Before I read my eulogy, I just wanted to read a couple things from family friends who have been friends for over 40 years. Joey wanted to say, Mark, wherever you are, I want you to know that I keep thinking of all the wild and crazy things we have done together over the past 42 years. They were some of the best times of my life. I wouldn't change a thing. I could also count on you anytime for anything. You're a true giant in my book. Rest in peace, my dear friend. I'm really going to miss you. Joey G. And Rosalie, Mark, you gave yourself freely. Your zest for life was contagious. We had so much fun. That's what I'll remember the most, the laughter and the fun forever. To my Marky Poo, I love you, Ro. When my dad made his speech at my wedding, he mentioned this was an event to remember because my mom allowed him to have the mic. He said that ensured it being a shorter speech. I apologize that this will not be very short. There are so many things I want to convey the love for my dad, but I know that I won't be able to say them all today. My father, Mark Feldman, loved being the center of attention at any party. Today, as we celebrate his life, he gets to be the center of attention again. It's funny, because when he moved to Florida 2 years ago, he said he couldn't wait to have a quiet retirement life and not talk to any neighbors and just give a wave. Of course, he very quickly became the social butterfly of Avalon Trails, which we knew was going to happen, and in the shortest time of living there made the most dearest friends that he truly loved. My father's family and friends were the most important thing to him, and he made such an impact on all of our lives. He was always willing to lend a hand, an ear, or a tool. He had the most extravagant tool collection that was so precisely organized, a skill I didn't get from him. That if you asked him for a screwdriver, he could tell you what tool chest, which drawer, and which side it was on. My father was my biggest cheerleader and protector throughout my life. He was a constant source of unwavering support. He was always cracking a joke to make us laugh. He taught me things like how to make pancakes the right way. My dad loved to cook. It was one of my favorite things to do with him. From latkes to banana bread, we loved our kitchen time together. Growing up with my dad, there was never a dull moment. We had so many fun excursions over the years, from simple park trips to tobogganing during the snowstorms to memorable family vacations. Dad and I had a special bond. We had so many amazing moments over the years that I would love to share today. 1. Dad and I went on a camping trip with a group of other dads and kids. There was a store there that sold Tootsie Rolls for a penny. He gave me $1 so I could go buy 100 Tootsie Rolls. On the same camping trip, while sitting around the fire and telling scary stories, I was sitting on his lap. There was this old, large truck rim that kept the fire in. All of a sudden, Dad said, "Does anyone smell something burning?" Well, it turns out his boot was on fire. Apple picking and pumpkin picking was a yearly tradition growing up. We would go with our family friends, and we would have races and wheelbarrows, and Dad would lift Kim and me up while we sat on the apple picking pole. Dad and I had our very own song, Red Rubber Ball by Circle. We danced to it together at Scott and my wedding. I actually surprised him with it. When I worked in a haunted house and couldn't work one night, Dad offered to take my place. He had no voice the next day. And again, there's going to be a lot of repetition, sorry. My dad was a Long Island iced tea connoisseur. If a bartender didn't make it right, it went right back. When I went to bartending school, he told me I made the best Long Island iced teas, and anytime we would go out, he would order it and say, if it's not right, I'm going to send my daughter back to make it. His friend Jack said that now, where he is for sure getting the best Long Island iced teas. When I was 9 years old, we went to Disney World, and there was a performance where they needed volunteers. Dad volunteered and got to be the chicken in the middle of a group of people. And then if you remember what I said in the beginning about him being the center of attention, when I was in the hospital giving birth to Lexi, Dad dove in his friend's pool and dislocated his shoulder. He had to be brought to the hospital to have his shoulder put back. Of course, he was taken to another hospital, which caused a whole dilemma because he had to finally get to me at some point, and then he did get to meet his granddaughter with his arm in a sling. Dad drove me to Staten Island to sleep at my nanny and Poppy's house, and I left my favorite stuffed animal, Wrinkles, at home in Brooklyn. He drove all the way back from Staten Island to Brooklyn and back to Staten Island to bring her to me. Dad absolutely loved Disney. When he moved to Florida, he told me how he couldn't wait to get season passes. Not really. I'm just joking. We dragged him there on 2 family vacations with his 2 grandkids, and he hated every second of it. Except when he got to see Goofy, his favorite Disney character. He was the best papa, always doing fun things with the kids, whether it was a spontaneous trip to the pizza place or going to Galaxy Fun Park. He always looked for things to do with the kids. During the year of COVID, he helped them with remote learning, although I recently learned that when he couldn't figure it out, he'd just have them skip it and take them to the park. After school, when Lexi would have dance, he would get her ready and drive her. The studio owner messaged me to tell me she remembered how Lexi's whole first year there, her papa would bring her in, and even though he only needed to drop her off, he would always get out and walk her in to make sure she was safe. Dad was the life of the party. He loved the dance floor. He loved getting dressed up. He was a man who loved wearing a tuxedo. He had the biggest heart and the biggest smile. His smile lit up any room he was in. When he smiled, you could see it in his whole face. I am certain that he is continuing to smile down on us and will forever protect us from above. He truly touched the hearts of all that were fortunate to know him. In the tapestry of life, Mark's thread was one of vibrancy, compassion, and unwavering love. His spirit will continue to live on through each and every one of us. Daddy, I cannot even put into words how much I'm going to miss you. We will all continue to keep your memory alive forever. Your legacy will live on through all of us. I will forever be your bright eyes. This is not goodbye. It's until we meet again. I love you so much, and I promise we will not mourn your death. We will celebrate your life.
Now we'll hear Mark's daughter, Kim.
Well, this sucks. I spent hours trying to decide what to say, but it's nearly impossible when it feels so wrong. And yet here we are celebrating my dad's life. This morning, I woke up and I went to go knock on my mother's door and went into her room. And she looked at me and she said, "What's the matter? You look like you lost your father." Also this morning, I had a sneezing attack. And there's a reason I'm telling you this. A minute later, my husband laughed. I asked him why he's laughing, and he said, "Someone needs to take over." "Take over for what?" I asked. "Your dad's sneezing attacks." So I couldn't help but laugh as well. God, the second my dad started sneezing, we would say, "Here goes again," and start counting. I can't remember what his record was. Yeah, so that's about all I could write today. I couldn't really write anything when it doesn't feel right, what's happening. It still feels like he should be here. So what I'm gonna do is just tell some stories of my memories with him, but I'm gonna start with a memory that took place before I was born, and it is one of my favorite stories. The toll booth story. My dad called my mom, and he said, "You're not gonna believe what happened." Something he would always say when he did something that we could believe because it was him. Where he would also say, "I can't believe this." So he was driving through the toll booth, and he took out a quarter, and when he went to go put it in the little basket, it fell, and the person at the toll booth said, "Oh, there it is." So he bent over to get out of the car and pick up the quarter. And he fell out of the car, but the car was still running, and his foot came off the brake. And then the car started rolling away. So he had to go chase the car. When he told my mom this story, my mom asked, "Well, did anyone see?" And he said, "I don't know, I didn't have time to look." That will always be one of my favorite stories, and a lot of other people, because there's many stories of him. Another story that many people would not believe. My mom and my sister and I were sitting and watching Desperate Housewives. And it was the middle of the winter, and it had snowed, and it turned into ice on the roof. So my dad decided at night was a good time to climb a ladder, go on the roof, and try and break up the ice. Well, all of a sudden, we hear banging on the roof while we're watching. This banging went on for a half hour, and my mom and sister and I were sitting there saying, "What the hell is he doing?" As we're increasing the volume on the TV so we could hear it. Well, it turns out, actually, I don't really remember exactly what happened. Did the ladder slide? The ladder? Oh, yes, there was ice in the area, and he couldn't get down. Thank you, Lindsay. So he needed us to come out and move the ladder. These are typical stories of my dad, because he always had to be doing something and keeping busy. Whether it be cleaning or cooking, and he was a great cook and great at cleaning, something that the cleaning neither of us inherited. Lindsay, you did inherit the cooking and baking. Also, with him always doing something, he helped me move a total of 8 times. And every time he helped me move, he would say, "Never again." But clearly, he did it again. I'm going to go back a little bit and tell some stories from when I was a child. When I was young, my dad rescued me from getting run over by a bike. We were at the park, and he was helping Lindsay on the monkey bars so she wouldn't fall off. And I ran off, and there was a bike coming towards me. So my dad left Lindsay and ran to grab me so I wouldn't get run over. That was at the expense of Lindsay's wrist, as she fell off the monkey bars and broke her wrist. I guess it was a lose-lose situation for him, because one of us was bound to get hurt. Then, when we went to Florida for my 5th birthday, that was going to be my first Disney trip, and Lindsay's first Disney trip. He was not able to make it down right away because he was working, and I remember seeing a truck pull up to the house before we were in Disney World. And we all ran over to the truck, and my dad had sent Minnie Mouse with a whole bunch of balloons. And I still have that Minnie Mouse, although his granddog does think it's his and took it from me a few times. We then went to Disney World when he came to Florida, and I don't care what anybody says, he did love Disney. In fact, when he was there, we caught on video him saying, "You know what, Joey, you were right. This place is great." He'll never admit it. While we were there, we were in line for Space Mountain, which I was too small to go on, but we all went in line with him, and it was very dark on the line. So I started crying hysterically, because one, I was scared of the dark. And my dad said to me, "It's dark in your room when I turn off your light and you go to sleep at night." And I cried, "But you put on my night light." I was also scared that he was going to take me on the roller coaster. Well, it turns out years later, I developed that same love for roller coasters. And we finally got to go on a roller coaster together. I can't speak, sorry. We finally got to go on a roller coaster together in Disney on Rock and Roller Coaster. And I would love to be able to go on a roller coaster with him again. We also shared a love for the outdoors, and I would always talk to him about my hiking experiences and drive him crazy with my constant stories. We shared a love for chocolate milk, or as my sister would say, a little bit of chocolate syrup with a little bit of milk in it. Yeah. And I am forever going to be grateful that he was there to walk me down the aisle, to marry the love of my life, and to have that father-daughter dance. He was such a strong man, and I'll always remember him. He was our protector, and he was always the life of the party. Dad, maybe one of these days I will do the New York City bike tour in your memory. I just have to get over my fear because when I was 12 years old, you took away my bike because I refused to wear a helmet. I love you so much, and will remember you every day, and will celebrate your life every single day. Your spirit will be here with us, and we will never forget you.
Now for our final speaker, I'll call Marianne back to the altar to read words from Mike's wife, Jeannie.
Jeannie asked me to read this for her. It's entitled My Mark. We met in the fall when I was 20 and he was 23. I was a singer and he worked as a small appliances salesman. My friends worked there with him. I needed a tape recorder and he sold one to me. The next day, he called me to ask if I was happy with the tape recorder. I said yes. I remember I loved the sound of his voice. Then he asked me on a date, and I said yes again. And we saw each other almost every day after that. After 2 weeks, he said to me, "I think I love you." I responded with, "Well, when will you know for sure?" One night, when we were walking in the snow, I was talking about how I wanted to be a Broadway star, and he could come and see me with his wife and kids. He turned to look at me with the saddest face, and that's when I knew Broadway lost and Mark won. After 6 weeks of dating, he asked me to marry him, and I said yes. Then he asked, "Can we get modern furniture?" I said, "Sure." We never, ever bought any modern furniture, by the way. We were married 45 years, although now it feels like 45 seconds. We had an amazing life, even up to the night he got his transplant. I told him before he went in, "If you die, I will kill you." He laughed. We had a typical marriage. There were ups and downs, and fighting and making up. But honestly, the thing I remember most is he always apologized with a snake plant. We had many snake plants. All I can say is, despite the ups and downs, we were always sure we loved each other. Thank you, Mark, for giving me such a wonderful life. We are so blessed. We have wonderful children who married the most wonderful men and gave us the best grandchildren in the world. I will take care of Sonny. I can't believe he outlived you. I know you're probably happy about that because you would have never gotten over that. But now I think I might need to find a bereavement group for me and Sonny. I will not say goodbye, just farewell until we meet again. But I am kind of pissed at you, and I might kill you when I get up there.
Such beautiful remembrances of what was clearly a life well lived. As we turn our attention now to our prayers of remembrance and mourning, we rise together for the memorial prayer. We'll recite together for Mark Feldman the words of El Malay Rachamim. Please rise. El Malay Rachamim שוכן במרומים, המצא מנוחה נכונה תחת כנפי השכינה. עם קידושים וטהורים כזוהר הרקיע מזהירים את נשמת מרדכי בן אלעזר שלח לעולמו, בעלה הרחמים יסתירהו בסתר כנפיו לעולמים. ויהי צרור בצרור רחם את נשמתו, אדוני הוא נחלתו וינוח בשלום על משכבו. ונאמר Amen. Compassionate God, eternal Spirit of the universe, grant perfect rest in your sheltering presence among the holy and pure to the soul of Mark Feldman, who has entered eternity. May his repose be in paradise. O God of mercy, let him find refuge forever in the shadow of your wings, and let his soul be bound up in everlasting life. God is his inheritance. May he rest in peace. And together we say, Amen. Amen. And we now remain standing for the words of the mourner's Kaddish, which you can find on the back of your program. Yikadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah, Bialma divirach chirute v'yamlich malchute, b'chayechon uvyomechon uv'chaye dechol beit Yisrael, b'agalman uv'izman kariv imru amen. Yehei shemei Rabbah mevarach leolam olmei almaya, yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitba'ar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh, v'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shemei dekudisha barechu, le'elam min kol birchata v'shirata, tush bechata v'nechemata, Dan min ran be'alma v'imru amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya, v'chaim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom b'imromav, huya aseh shalom, aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom b'imromav, huya aseh shalom, aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'imru amen. And now Mark's family lovingly requests that we all sing together one of Mark's favorite songs. A long, long time ago, I can still remember how that music used to make me smile. And I knew if I had my chance that I could make those people dance, and maybe they'd be happy for a while. But February made me shiver with every paper I deliver. Bad news on the doorstep, I couldn't take one more step. I can't remember if I cried when I read about his widowed bride. Something touched me deep inside the day the music died. So bye-bye, Miss American Pie, drove my die. This will be the day that I die. Now for 10 years we've been on our own. Moss grows fat on a rolling stone, but that's not how it used to be. When the jester sang for the king and queen in a coat he borrowed from James Dean, in a voice that came from you and me. Oh, while the king was looking down, the jester stole his thorny crown. The courtroom was adjourned, no verdict was returned. And while Lemon read a book on Marx and a quartet practiced in the park, we sang dirges in the dark of the day. The music died, and they were singing bye bye Miss American Pie. Drove my Chevy to the levee, but the levee was dry. Them good old boys were drinking whiskey and rye, singing, this will be the day that I die. This will be the day that I die. Oh, helter skelter in a summer swelter, the birds flew off with the fallout shelter, 8 miles high and falling fast. It landed foul on the grass. The players tried for a forward pass with the jester on the sidelines in a cast. Now the halftime air was sweet perfume while sergeants played a marching tune. We all got up to dance, but we never got the chance, 'cause the players tried to take the field. The marching band refused to yield. Do you recall what was revealed the day the music died? We were singing bye bye Miss American Pie. Drove my Chevy to the levee, but the levee was dry. Them good old boys were drinking whiskey and rye, singing, this will be the day that I die. This will be the day that I die. And there we were all in one place, a generation lost in space, with no time left to start again. So come on, Jack, be nimble, Jack, be quick. Jack Flash said on a candlestick, this fire is the devil's old friend. And as I watched him on the stage, my hands were clenched in fists of rage. No angel born in hell could break that Satan spell. As the flames climbed high into the night to light that sacrificial light, I saw Satan laughing with delight the day the music died. They were singing bye bye Miss American Pie. Drove my Chevy to the levee, but the levee was dry. Them good old boys were drinking whiskey and rye, singing, this will be the day that I die. This will be the day that I die. Well, I met a girl who sang the blues. I asked her for some happy news. She just smiled and turned away. I went down to the sacred store where I'd heard the music years before, but the man there said the music wouldn't play. And in the streets the children screamed, the lovers cried, and the poets dreamed, but not a word was spoken. The church bells all were broken, and the 3 men I admired the most, the Father, Son, and the Holy Ghost, they caught the last train for the coast the day the music died. They were singing bye bye Miss American Pie. Drove my Chevy to the levee, but the levee was dry. Them good old boys were drinking whiskey and rye, singing, this will be the day that I die. This will be the day that I die. They were singing bye bye Miss American Pie. Drove my Chevy to the levee, but the levee was dry. May the one who creates harmony on high create peace for us and all Israel, to which we say, Amen. Amen. As we have come in peace, may we go in peace, and may the memory of your beloved Mark always be for a blessing. And together we say, Amen. Amen. This concludes our service, and will remain standing as we let the family exit first. They'll receive you in the lobby.